Next speaker is Dr. Swagatika Sahu. Dr. Swagatika Sahu is currently a DST Inspire faculty at the Department of Chemical Engineering and a core faculty at the Initiative for Biological Systems Engineering here at IIT Madras. So it's a great pleasure for me to again introduce her, my colleague here. So she received her PhD from the Center of Systems Biology at the University of Iceland, and she has had postdoc positions at Systems Biomedicine Luxembourg Center for Systems Biomedicine at University of Luxembourg. And in IIT Madras, she has been focusing on systems biology approaches for predicting therapies for metabolic diseases, including brain disorders and cancer. And she has served as a reviewer for Bioinformatics and Journal of Inherited Metabolic Disease. And we are looking forward to hear her talk about whole body metabolic models, one of the recent exciting work that she has done. Please, we are looking forward to your talk. Please go ahead, Dr. Swagatika.
Okay, so I have disabled my video. I hope that is fine. Okay, so thank you, Mani, for the kind introduction, and thanks the organizers for having me here. So this talk is kind of in line with Julio's talk in the afternoon, as well as Anu's talk. So I would start my presentation here. So this talk, I'm going to talk first about the systems biology paradigm. So this, I have been receiving questions on the YouTube forum as well as here in the Zoom as to when we have a huge chunk of data sets, typically patient specific data or omics data set, how do we go about using the tools that we have on analysis of the data? So that is more in lines with the systems biology approaches that I'll be talking about. Then I'll talk about the human metabolic network, which is the starting point for a lot of clinical applications that we have right now, as well as the topic that I'll be discussing towards the end, that is the whole body metabolic model. So that was actually derived from the human metabolic network. And finally, I'll give you few of my research themes that I am involved in. Okay, so this is again a kind of repetition from Julio's slides. So this is the central dogma where you have the genetic information or the information about life, and you have a unidirectional flow of information. And as the information flows from the level of nucleic acids here to the level of metabolites here down here in the form of reactions, we have simultaneously the omics data that measures each level of information that you have. And once we have all of this, so basically if you take in the most recent one being the metabolomics data sets, where you actually measure the level of metabolites, and also the proteomics, where you also measure the level of protein. So once you have this huge chunk of data, if you're talking about whole cell analysis, what do you do with this kind of data? So here you use one of the systems biology approaches, and you give into network reconstruction followed by modeling. So this is what you do. You integrate all of the omics data sets that you have, be it the genomics, transcriptomics, proteomics, or the last one, which is actually bibliomics, which is nothing but the data from literature. You put that all into a perspective of a single network. That's what we do, is reconstruction of a biological network. We'll know about it in details in few slides ahead. Once you have the biological network, you convert that into a model. You have series of model building tools that I'll discuss few of them in this talk. And once you have the tool, you have, sorry, I'm getting, is there a disturbance? Okay, no, sorry. Yeah, okay, I'm getting messages on the chat, so that's the reason I thought it's my slides are not visible. Anyways, coming back to the talk. So once you have the network, you build the model out of it. These are your model building tools, and you have, sorry, these are the model features that you can query using one or the other model query tools. And once you have that, you are actually ending up with high throughput data analysis. So you started out with integration of different kinds of data. You integrated them into a network perspective. You converted the network into a model. And then finally, you ended up analyzing the data in the context of the model. Okay. So my slides are stuck again. Okay, I'll have to stop the share and start.
Swagatika, just
Yeah.
click on the slide. Click with the mouse pointer. Don't use the keyboard. Just click that. Click once.
Okay.
No, just no right click. Left click.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. So yeah, so coming to the human metabolic network, that is what I said is the starting point for a series of clinical applications. So this is the most comprehensive metabolic network that we have till date. This is the Recon 3D that was published in 2018 in Nature Biotech. So as you can see, the total number. So when we talk about a metabolic network, this actually comprises of metabolites, reactions, as well as the genes that encode the proteins / enzymes that are catalyzing these reactions. So as you can see, the total number of reaction of this network is pretty huge. It goes beyond 10,000, and the number of metabolites are also pretty huge. So this actually describes the current knowledge that we have on human metabolism that has been captured onto such a network. And on, can you see my pointer? Are you able to see my pointer?
Not really.
Okay, I'll take this. Okay, can you see
now?
now?
We can, yes.
So on here, you actually see the different kinds of data sets that has gone into building this particular Recon 3D. And the most abundant data that was used was that of the metabolomics data. We actually had around more than 10 different kinds of metabolomics data sets that went into building this particular network. Now, on the next set, I will tell you how do we go about building a metabolic network, and typically how do we ended up building the human metabolic network. So we start with metabolite per se. Here, if we are getting a list of metabolites, you identify the metabolite, you process the metabolite information. What you do is you basically capture what are the different pathways that are involved in its synthesis as well as in its consumption. And when you do that, you identify from the literature all the information that is available for this particular metabolite, and you end up having a set of pathways. So from a single reaction, you go into assembling of all the relevant pathways where typical metabolite or metabolites are involved. Once you assemble all of these pathways together, what you get is the human metabolic network. I'm sorry, I'm getting questions in the chat. Are they for me that I need to answer right away, or?
No, please ignore those questions here. Please go ahead. You'll answer questions towards the end of the talk.
Okay, fine. So this is the human metabolic network. So this is what you do. You start from a single reaction, you move on to assembling of different pathways, and then you assemble all the pathways together, and that's how you get the entire huge human metabolic network. So once you have this network, what do is you have a series of quality control tests that you need to do in order to satisfy whether the model that you have is up to the quality or not. So the Recon 3D was actually an extension of its previous version, Recon 2. From Recon 2, we actually, with the use of huge set of data sets, that is proteomics data sets as well as huge chunk of metabolomics data sets, we identified around 6,000 new reactions corresponding to these metabolites and a number of new metabolites per se, and then also new genes that are involved in translating information into synthesis of proteins / enzymes. So then what you have is, as I said, you do a number of quality control tests that ensure whether the final network that you've got is actually up to the mark for further analysis. So what are these tests, or how do you go from an assembly of reaction, that is basically a reconstruction, into having a model that you can basically test for? And that is what you do is in the next here. So you convert your reconstruction into a stoichiometric matrix over here. Here you see the S matrix comprises of metabolites and reaction. On the metabolite space or the row space, you have the metabolites. And by rule, any metabolite that is consumed takes in a negative coefficient, or any metabolite that is produced takes in a positive coefficient. On the column space, you actually have your reactions. That's why this is an M cross N matrix capturing the metabolites and the reaction information. Once you convert that into an S matrix, you have to define the boundaries. And this is where a lot of knowledge from the literature comes in. So this you have to define what are the inputs into your model as well as few of the outputs. And lastly, you have to define your constraints and objectives. Okay, so constraints are nothing but conditions under which a typical objective is met, or basically you, once you have the model, you write down your objectives, but you need to formulate what are the conditions under which all of these objectives are made. And the constraint based modeling, or the kind of approach that I'm discussing right now, operates under steady state condition, and that's why you have the mass balance constraint over here. Okay, and what is the use of constraints? So this is basically, if you go on adding successively the levels of constraints, you end up having a solution space, or rather a bounded solution space, and then you apply the principles of linear optimization, and it ends up giving you one of the most optimal solution. And most widely used method for this kind is the flux balance analysis that we have been talking over and over again. So this was actually an introduction as to how do we move from a network to a model. And once you have your objective and constraints defined, how do you use it to either maximize or minimize your objective? Now, since we are interested in a human metabolic network here, it has to be biologically relevant, or all the objectives or constraints that you set have to be obeying the principles of real life biology. I'll give you an example. Let's say one of your objective is production of energy from glucose. That is the typical objective that we actually need. So we need energy. Even for giving you this presentation, I need energy from my food. So let's say we are analyzing a system like this. What are your constraints to meet this objective? Of course, for production of energy from the precursor, that is glucose, the glucose has to be present in the medium. And as by principle, the oxidation of glucose under aerobic condition gives you more energy compared to the anaerobic condition. Therefore, oxygen should be also present in the medium. Another important constraint is the entire glucose oxidation pathway that you see here, as well as the transporter that is responsible for bringing the metabolite, that is glucose, from the outside to the inside of the cell should also be present in order to satisfy your objective, that is production of energy from glucose. So the take-home message from this particular slide is that curation of biochemical literature becomes essential in setting biologically relevant objectives as well as constraints. Recon 3D, or the Human Metabolic Network, were actually tested for more than 400 such objectives. And out of these 400 objectives, we had certain organ-specific objectives. So when I say organ-specific objectives, you have to take into consideration that Recon is not organ specific. It is actually a generic network which captures the entire human metabolism that can occur across any human cell type. So in order to build a network that is relevant to a particular cell type or an organ type, you have to have certain objectives which are met only by that particular organ or cell type. Okay, in the next set of slides it becomes more clear. So coming on to certain applications of Recon, typically in this presentation, I will tell you, Recon has been used for deriving cell-specific models or organ-specific models, as well as interaction not only between the organs, but also interaction between the human host as well as the microbial component. That will also be more clear towards the end of the presentation. But these are all of, or well, not all, but few of the biomedical applications of Recon. And in this talk, we'll discuss the cell-specific model building. Okay, and this is in context with the recent publication, that is the organ resolved whole body metabolic model. This got published last month, and the models that we had were both gender specific. For the males, we had the model was Harvey, and for the female, we had the model which is called Harvetta. Now, how do we go about building an organ specific model? In this context, we are not building one or two organs. We are building the entire human. That's why I told you the entire whole body models here. Okay, so you start with Recon 3D. You have a model building algorithm. In this context, we had one of the model building algorithm which is called FastCore. it works in a little different fashion. So what it does is you have to give in a set of reactions which you know are part of the typical organ that you want to build for, and then the algorithm extracts all the rest of the reactions from the entire library of Recon 3D to meet the different objectives that you have set. So in this context, Recon was subjected to a lot of constraints. The most useful or the most abundant constraint that were placed is the huge proteomic data sets. We mapped in the entire human protein atlas, as well as another protein data set that was published probably 3 to 4 years back. We also use certain pre-existing organ-specific models. We read a lot of literature that was pertaining to the organ-specific information. So we ended up reading at least more than 600 organ-specific books, organ-specific scientific articles. All of that has gone into it. And then we also included a lot of physiological data. So when I say physiological data, this is actually metabolomics data, as well as other information pertaining to the human body. I will also give you a list of all that physiological information that has gone into it. So you subject Recon 3D to all of these biologically relevant constraints that is mentioned over here, and you use this model building algorithm. You obtain a draft model. Onto this draft model, again, you do a series of model consistency checks, just similar to the ones that we did for Recon. We also repeat the same until and unless we meet with the desired objective that has been set for this particular model. If it did not meet your criteria, you go on feeding the information that has been missed again into Recon, and then go on building the model. And this process is done iteratively. We actually had around more than 100. So although the paper mentions more than 100, I remember we actually went like beyond 200 to meet the final high quality model that we had at the end, which we called as the Harvey and Harvetta. And that is what I give you here. Harvetta, the female model, had 30 organs, whereas the male has 28 organs. And this is the first ever physiologically consistent, gender specific, genome scale, whole body metabolic model. Okay, and here we do not talk about the connections between the organs using only blood as the connection, but we have actually 13 different biofluid compartments defined in the model. So I'll give you the picture over here. This is actually the model where we have the 32. If you take a unique between the 28 and 30 organs that put together, you end up having 32 unique organs, and all of them have been listed here. As I said, what makes the difference between Harvey, Harvetta to or against other metabolic models that have been published, typically the whole body models that have been published, is the actual 13 biofluid compartments that are connecting all of these organs. And the information that has gone into building these biofluid compartments are taken all from the physiological information available in each organ. Okay. So, and here are all the biofluid compartments that have been listed here. And to give you a statistics, if Recon had around 13,000 reaction, you can imagine if we are building at one particular stretch a model for 32 organs, we are crossing, it is almost touching like, 85,000 for Harvetta, the total number of reactions, and 80,000, more than 80,000 reaction for Harvey model. And these are the number of metabolites versus the number of genes. And here you can see the gender specific organs. We also had certain glands, and here I give you that list. These are the glands that we included, and these are the gender specific organs over here again. We also included certain blood cell types. The ones that you see in bold are the ones that are pre-existing. So before we started out building Harvey and Harvetta, we actually used the pre-existing model for the small intestine, adipocytes, liver, and red blood cell, because these organs were actually manually curated models. That's the reason we decided to include them in Harvey and Harvetta. So meaning most of the information were actually taken from the biological literature existing for this particular organ type. Okay, so this is the list for the entire whole body model. Once we had this, how do we use the information, or basically in the context of clinical relevance, I give you how do we use Harvey and Harvetta for simulating or for computing the metabolic diseases. In this context, I give you the inherited metabolic diseases. Metabolic diseases that you know, they're very common, like diabetes or obesity. But when I'm talking about the inherited metabolic diseases, these are the group of diseases that you encounter because of a lacuna in your metabolism, but are running within the generation or within a family. That's the reason these are called inherited metabolic disorders. So we simulated around 57 metabolic diseases with Harvey and Harvetta. And usually the metabolic diseases are identified or diagnosed by use of specific metabolite biomarkers. As you can see, when compared to the generic model like Recon, Harvey and Harvetta captured more number of metabolite biomarkers. And that is the reason behind being the use of the 13 biofluid compartment. Here, as I go back here, you see this, because we had this extensive biofluid information incorporated into this model. That's the reason we were able to capture huge number of biomarkers. And that is also the reason as to why we were able to give you around 85% being true predictions. So what I mean by saying true predictions, meaning, let's say Harvey and Harvetta are capturing levels of metabolites going up. The literature is also supporting this particular information. That's what I mean when I say true predictions. And when I say false, meaning the Harvey and Harvetta do not agree with the literature reports in terms of the biomarker prediction. But we see a very huge accuracy levels with respect to the Harvey and Harvetta models. So that was for the information with respect to the inherited metabolic diseases. Now I give you another example. So when I talk about the entire human metabolic model has been built, the first question that comes into mind, are the organs that are represented in this model truly interconnected? To answer this, we checked whether the inter-organ metabolic cycles are able to perform in the similar manner that we have been discussing. So I give you an example of the glucose-alanine cycle, or otherwise known as the Cori cycle, very popular in biochemistry. This particular pathway depicts the flow of glucose from liver to the skeletal muscle. So what happens is, when you have a dip or a lower level of glucose in your blood, the triggers in the liver are basically activated to run the pathway that is called gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis is nothing but the pathway which synthesizes glucose from non-carbohydrate sources. So these triggers are activated. The liver continuously or actively synthesizes glucose, feeds it into the bloodstream, which is being taken up by the skeletal muscle in order to meet its energy demands. So what muscle does, it converts the glucose into pyruvate by this particular pathway called glycolysis. Pyruvate can then be converted into lactate. The lactate then goes into the blood, taken up by the liver again. So there's this cycle that is continuously being happening. Okay, but the another fate that we also see is the pyruvate can get converted to an amino acid which is called alanine. That the process is called the transamination reaction. This alanine then freely travels in the blood, reaches the liver. Liver is one of the only sites in the human body that has got all the potential for a complete urea cycle. Another site for complete urea cycle is the small intestine, which has not been shown here in the picture. But yeah, so liver does the entire urea cycle, synthesizing urea from ammonia that is being taken up from alanine. So this is the entire glucose-alanine cycle, or the Cori cycle, and all the reactions that I have mentioned here, or I have been talking for the past 1 minute, has been accurately captured by the two models, Harvey and Harvetta. So this is one of the inter-organ metabolic cycles that I'm talking about here. If you look into Harvey and Harvetta, there are more than one inter-organ metabolic cycles. Typically, you have the citrulline pathway between kidney and small intestine. You have the retinol synthesis happening between the livers and the eyes or the retina. So you have a lot of these inter-organ metabolic cycles running in Harvey and Harvetta. So this actually kinds of convinces us that not only is the model capturing the organs, but also truly capturing the connection between the organs that we are so trying to model for. Now, using Harvey and Harvetta for the personalized medicine, that was the title of the talk, I would like to draw your attention to the gut microbiome, or the microbial species, or the gut bacteria that are residing in the human body, within the human gut. So recently, we have been hearing a lot of connection between the metabolic diseases and the dysbiosis or a disbalance between the levels of the gut bacteria. So one of the important questions that we tried to answer with the Harvey and Harveta models was, can we now use these models to capture the gut bacteria information? So we use the data from the Human Microbiome Project. We use metagenomics data of around 150 individuals. We had another set of gut microbe genome scale metabolic models. This was also not recently published, probably a year before Recon. So this was an assembly of 773 gut microbiome genome scale metabolic models. The paper goes with the name of Agora, so you can check it out. It is also available on Nature Biotech. So we mapped the information from microbiome project onto the Agora reconstruction that we had, and Harvey and Harveta captured around 131 microbes from these data sets. One of the most highly represented bacteria phyla that was present in Harvey and Harveta both were Bacteroides followed by Firmicutes. And this is actually also agreeing with the literature when you talk about what is the most highly represented gut bacteria within the human gut, which is actually these two gut microbes. Now, coming back to the clinical side of microbiome information, recently we have, sorry?
Sorry, I just wanted to let you know that if you could finish in a couple of minutes, that will be great. Yeah, so
Yes. I'm
I'm
slowly approaching towards the summary. Yeah, I will take another 3 minutes and then I'm done.
Yes, thanks.
Okay. So what we did is once we had the microbiome information, we were interested in knowing, can we now use Harvey Harveta to study the brain gut axis, because a lot of the brain disorders that were coming, be it Alzheimer's, be it Parkinson's, or be it the bipolar disorder, we have been hearing a lot of association between the gut microbes and the human brain. And that's what we did. We asked Harvey and Harveta, can you give us names of neurotransmitters which are being synthesized by the human gut or the human bacteria? And quite favorably, the ones that are being highlighted here in bold agree with the literature. So the models predicted that the neurotransmitters GABA and histamine are also being synthesized, in addition to the brain, are also being synthesized by the gut bacteria. And the ones that are not highlighted are the ones that are new predictions from the Harvey Harveta model. So this actually highlights that the whole body models, that is Harvey and Harveta, have a huge potential to interrogate the brain gut axis, because now you can actually see what happens in the gut within the microbial population that can affect one of the other organs. Typically in this context, it is the human brain. Okay, so that's how you can have really personalized microbiome associated whole body metabolic models. Okay, now coming to the conclusion of my talk, as I have been telling over and over again, the constraint-based metabolic modeling, or the kind of metabolic model that I've been showing you, typically in the context of Recon 3D, has got a great potential for medical diagnosis or proposing newer therapeutics. Typically, what I didn't say but has been highlighted here is gaining mechanistic insights for diseases. Here I've showed you with respect to Harvey and Harveta, where it can be used in clinical application, but Recon 3D alone has also been used for a lot of clinical applications. And if you go into the Nature Biotech paper, you can actually see how Recon has been used for a lot of disease studies. But one thing that I would like to highlight here is we need to combine the computational approaches with that of the experimental validation for further advancements in order to make the model truly believable. Okay, coming to that, I give you a list of the research activities in my lab. And prior to my talk, you had a poster presentation, and that was from 3 of my students. We were involved in modeling breast cancer, which is here in context of omics data analysis. And we also do a lot of host microbe interaction with respect to autistic behavior or autism. And then in association with NIMHANS, we are also building the astrocyte metabolic astrocyte metabolic network to study bipolar disorder. And these are all the research activities being done in my lab right now. With that, I would like to acknowledge all my students, both current and former, as well as collaborators, both inside and outside IIT. And here you can see most of them are actually experimental biologists who would actually provide me with the experimental validation part. So with that, I would conclude and thank you all for the patience and would like to take certain questions. Although my screen has been frozen and I'm not able to go back. So what I'll do is I'll stop my sharing and then I can take few questions.
Thanks, Swagatika, for the great talk, talking about the next level of metabolic modeling in terms of whole body models. So I think one particular question, again, we only have time for one brief question, is how do you apply or adapt your model, such as this whole body model, to a disease such as diabetes? What are the steps involved? If you have some gene expression data from multiple tissues, what is this effort?
Yeah. So apart from omics, so here I would like to highlight, see, Harvey and Harveta not only included omics data, but they also included a lot of clinical data. They included a lot of physiological parameters that has gone into building this model and making them much more believable. So what I'll do is I will show you this particular slide, which will, so here you see this. There's a lot of physiological parameters that went into constraining or building the Harvey and Harveta models. And here, if you can see.
Yes, we can see,
Yeah. And one thing more that I would really like to highlight, because if you see the number of reactions that has gone into building Harvey and Harveta, pretty huge. So if you are thinking of computing on your regular machine, don't do that. You end up freezing your machine just like I did it right now. This is the level of memory that you need for computing on Harvey and Harveta. If you look into the paper available on the journal, Molecular Systems Biology, you give a supplement that is an HTML file, gives you the entire simulation detail, how you can build Harvey and Harveta and run a lot of these simulations. But again, you need an industrial quality solver to compute it.
Okay, thanks so much, Swagatika. And I want to thank all the speakers of this session again. And we will have two brief poster videos, and after that, we'll resume the next session. Okay.
Yes.
So I request Swagatika to join start those videos.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mani.
Yeah.